Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak directly to the hearts of women everywhere. You were created by God with purpose, dignity, and divine value. You don't need to chase what God has already prepared for you. When you know your worth, you won't lower your standards, you'll rise in faith, trusting God to bring the right person into your life. Let's talk about living as a woman of God who walks in confidence, not chasing, but receiving what's already hers. God has a plan for you, and it's a plan that goes beyond anything you could imagine for yourself. When life seems uncertain or when you feel tempted to take matters into your own hands, remember that the creator of the universe is not surprised by where you are today. He is not caught off guard by your circumstances, your dreams, or your desires. He sees the whole picture, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and he has already written a story for your life that is filled with purpose, beauty, and meaning. You don't have to force things to happen or rush ahead of his timing because his plans are always perfect. Often we get anxious when life doesn't unfold the way we expect it. We may feel like time is slipping away or that we need to make something happen to get to where we want to be. But when you chase after something that isn't aligned with God's will, you end up settling for less than what he has for you. God's plan isn't something you have to manipulate or chase after. It's something you trust him to unfold in his timing. That trust is the key to living in peace and purpose. When you understand that God has a plan for your life, you don't need to live in a state of fear or worry about your future. Instead, you can rest in the confidence that his ways are higher than your ways, and his thoughts are higher than your thoughts. He knows what's best for you, and he's working behind the scenes even when you can't see it. You may not understand why things happen the way they do, but God sees the bigger picture. What you perceive as delays or setbacks may actually be part of his divine setup for something greater. Living in alignment with God's plan means surrendering your own agenda and trusting him to guide you. It's not about giving up your dreams, but about placing them in God's hands and allowing him to shape them into something even more extraordinary. Sometimes what you think you want isn't what God has in mind for you. And when you let go of control and allow him to take the lead, you open yourself up to blessings that far exceed your expectations. This trust also extends to your relationships. It's tempting to chase after people, hoping they'll fill a void or bring you happiness. But the truth is, no person can complete you, only God can. When you focus on seeking him first, he will bring the right people into your life at the right time. You don't have to chase, you don't have to convince anyone of your worth. God will align the right opportunities and relationships for you, and they will flow naturally into your life. It's easy to look around and compare your journey to someone else's, especially when it seems like others are getting what you've been praying for. But comparison only steals your joy and clouds your vision of what God is doing in your life. You're not on someone else's timeline, you're on God's timeline. He hasn't forgotten about you, and he hasn't overlooked your desires. If you'll stay faithful, trusting him through every season, he will reveal his plans for you in ways that will amaze you. God's plan for your life is not about settling for good enough. It's about stepping into the fullness of what he has prepared for you. That's why patience is so important. When you wait on God, you're not wasting time. You're investing in the future he has designed. It's in those waiting seasons that God shapes your character, deepens your faith, and prepares you for the blessings he's bringing your way. If you rush ahead, you might miss the growth and the lessons that are essential for where he's taking you. The beauty of trusting in God's plan is that it frees you from striving. You don't have to hustle for approval or validation because you already have God's approval. You don't have to chase after people because the right people will see your value and be drawn to you. This doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you walk forward in faith, doing what you can and trusting God to handle what you can't. When you trust in God's plan, you also become more of the doors he's opening and closing in your life. Not every opportunity is meant for you, and not every person who comes into your life is part of God's plan. That's why it's so important to stay connected to him through prayer, seeking his guidance and discernment. He will give you peace about the right choices and a check in your spirit when something isn't aligned with his will. When you learn to recognize his voice and follow his lead, you'll find that his plan unfolds in ways that are greater than you ever imagined. Your worth is not something that can be earned, proven, or diminished by what others think of you. It is a divine gift given to you by God himself. The moment you were created, God placed within you a value that no one can take away. He designed you with purpose, intention, and care, and his opinion of you never wavers. Yet, in a world that often measures worth by outward appearances, achievements, or the approval of others, it can be easy to lose sight of this truth. But understanding your worth begins with recognizing that it comes from the one who created you. You don't have to compete for value or validation because you are already enough. You are loved, chosen, and precious in God's eyes. When you embrace this truth, it transforms the way you see yourself and the way you allow others to treat you. Instead of seeking approval from people, you begin to live from a place of knowing that you are already approved by God. This shift in perspective is freeing because it removes the pressure to perform or to try to fit into someone else's mold. When you truly understand your worth, you won't feel the need to chase relationships, opportunities, or acceptance. You won't feel compelled to settle for less than what you deserve because you'll know deep in your heart that God has so much more for you. Chasing is rooted in a fear of lack, the fear that if you don't pursue something, it will slip away. But when you know your worth, you trust that what is meant for you will not pass you by. You don't have to beg for attention, affection, or affirmation. Instead, you walk confidently, knowing that the right people and the right opportunities will be drawn to you. Understanding your worth also changes how you navigate relationships. You no longer tolerate being treated in ways that don't align with the dignity God has given you. You don't allow disrespect, manipulation, or neglect to have a place in your life because you know you are deserving of love that reflects God's heart for you. This isn't about pride or arrogance. It's about honoring the value God has placed on you and refusing to accept anything less than what He desires for you. Knowing your worth doesn't mean you won't face challenges or moments of doubt. There will be times when you feel overlooked, unappreciated, or misunderstood. In those moments, it's essential to remind yourself of who you are in Christ. Your worth is not determined by someone else's opinion, nor is it tied to your accomplishments, your past, or your circumstances. It is rooted in the unchanging truth of God's love for you. His love is not conditional, and it's not based on your performance. It simply is, and it is more than enough. The world will often try to define your worth in superficial ways by your appearance, your social status, your job, or your relationship status. But none of these things can add to or take away from the value that God has already given you. The problem with basing your worth on external factors is that they are temporary and ever changing. What happens when beauty fades, when jobs change, or when relationships shift? If your worth is tied to these things, you'll find yourself constantly striving, always chasing after something to fill the void. But when your worth is anchored in God, you have a foundation that cannot be shaken. Living in the awareness of your God-given worth doesn't just affect you, it impacts the way you interact with others. When you understand your own value, you begin to see the value in others. You treat people with kindness, respect, and love because you recognize that two are created in God's image. This perspective allows you to build relationships that are healthy and uplifting rather than ones that are rooted in insecurity or competition. Knowing your worth also empowers you to say no to things that don't align with God's best for you. It gives you the strength to walk away from situations that compromise your values or make you feel less than who you are. It allows you to set boundaries that protect your heart and your peace. Saying no doesn't mean you're being selfish. It means you're honoring the worth that God has placed in you. When you live with an awareness of your worth, you exude a quiet confidence that draws others to you. It's not about being boastful or seeking attention. It's about walking in the truth of who you are. This confidence isn't something you have to manufacture. It flows naturally from knowing you're deeply loved and valued by God. It's a confidence that says, I don't need to chase or strive because I know who I am and whose I am. Focusing on your purpose means aligning your heart and actions with the unique calling God has placed on your life. It is easy to get distracted by the noise around you, by what others are doing, achieving, or pursuing, but your purpose is not tied to anyone else's journey. God has given you specific gifts, talents, and dreams, and He has called you to use them for His glory. When you keep your eyes fixed on what God has placed in your heart, you'll find that you have no time to chase people or situations that don't align with your purpose. Living with purpose starts with understanding who you are in Christ. You are not defined by the roles you play or the opinions of others. You are defined by the identity God has given you. When you embrace this truth, you can begin to walk confidently in the direction He has set before you. Purpose is not about achieving perfection or pleasing people. It's about faithfully stewarding what God has entrusted to you. It's about showing up each day with a heart that is willing to serve and a spirit that is open to His leading. When you focus on your purpose, you stop looking for validation from external sources. You don't need someone else to affirm your worth or approve of your choices because you know you are already approved by God. This doesn't mean you ignore wise counsel or the encouragement of others. It means you don't base your decisions on a desire to gain their approval. Instead, you move forward with confidence, trusting that God is guiding your steps and that He will bring the right people and opportunities into your life at the right time. One of the challenges of focusing on your purpose is the temptation to compare your path to someone else's. You might see others achieving milestones or living out their dreams, and it's natural to wonder why your life doesn't look the same. But comparison is a distraction that pulls you away from your purpose. It shifts your focus from what God is doing in your life to what He is doing in someone else's. The truth is, you don't know the full story of anyone else's journey. You don't see the struggles, sacrifices, or seasons of waiting they've experienced. God's plan for you is uniquely yours, and it unfolds in His perfect timing. Focusing on your purpose also means being intentional about where you invest your time and energy. It's easy to get caught up in activities or relationships that don't contribute to your growth or align with your goals. But when you are clear about your purpose, you become more discerning about the choices you make. You start to prioritize the things that matter most and let go of the things that don't. This might mean saying no to certain opportunities, walking away from toxic relationships, or setting boundaries that protect your peace. It's not always easy, but it's necessary if you want to stay aligned with God's plan for your life. Your purpose is not just about what you do, it's about who you are becoming. God is more concerned with your character than your achievements. As you focus on your purpose, He will use every experience, both the highs and the lows, to shape you into the person He created you to be. The challenges you face are not meant to defeat you, they are meant to refine you. The seasons of waiting are not wasted, they are preparing you for what's ahead. When you embrace this perspective, you can find peace in the process, knowing that God is at work in every detail of your life. Focusing on your purpose also means trusting that God's timing is perfect. You don't have to rush or force things to happen because God is never late. He knows exactly what you need and when you need it, and He is faithful to provide. Sometimes it might feel like nothing is happening, but those are the moments when God is working behind the scenes. He is orchestrating circumstances, preparing your heart, and aligning the pieces of your life in ways you can't yet see. When you trust Him, you can rest in the assurance that His plans for you are good. Another key aspect of focusing on your purpose is staying connected to God through prayer and His Word. These are the tools that keep you grounded and give you clarity about your next steps. When you spend time in prayer, you open your heart to God's guidance and wisdom. When you study His Word, you are reminded of His promises and encouraged to keep going, even when the road gets tough. Staying connected to God is what keeps your purpose alive and vibrant, even in the face of challenges. As you focus on your purpose, you'll find that the right people naturally align with you. These are the individuals who see your values, support your dreams, and encourage you to grow. You don't have to chase after them or strive for their attention. They will be drawn to you because they recognize the light of God's purpose in your life. This doesn't mean everyone will understand or agree with your path, but that's okay. Your purpose isn't meant to please everyone. It's meant to glorify God. When you stay focused on Him, everything else falls into place. Chasing is often rooted in the fear that if you don't go after something, it will slip away, leaving you empty-handed. It can feel like a natural response when you desire something deeply, whether it's a relationship, an opportunity, or a goal. But when you find yourself chasing, you may be operating from a place of lack rather than trust. Chasing can block blessings because it often leads you to settle for less than God's best or to pursue things that were never meant for you in the first place. God's blessings are not things you have to chase after. They are things that flow into your life when you align yourself with His will. When you chase after something, it can create a cycle of striving and exhaustion. You pour your energy into convincing, proving, or forcing something to happen, and in the process, you lose sight of the peace and confidence that comes from trusting God. Chasing puts the focus on your own efforts rather than on God's ability to provide. It's as if you're saying, God, I don't trust you to handle this, so I'm going to take control. But true blessings don't come from manipulation or striving. They come from surrender and obedience to God. One of the dangers of chasing is that it often leads you to compromise. In the pursuit of something you think you need, you may lower your standards, ignore red flags, or settle for less than what aligns with God's best for you. This can happen in relationships when you chase after someone who doesn't treat you with the love and respect you deserve. It can happen in career pursuits when you compromise your values to get ahead. And it can happen in your personal life when you prioritize superficial goals over the deeper, lasting fulfillment that comes from walking in God's purpose. When you chase, you risk exchanging God's blessings for temporary satisfaction. Chasing also creates a sense of urgency and anxiety that can cloud your judgment. Instead of waiting patiently for God's timing, you may feel pressured to act quickly, even if it means stepping outside of His will. This urgency can lead you to make decisions based on fear rather than faith, and those decisions often have consequences that could have been avoided. God's blessings are not hurried or forced. They come in His perfect time. When you trust Him, you can wait with confidence, knowing that He will bring the right things into your life at the right moment. Another way that chasing blocks blessings is by distracting you from the opportunities and relationships God has already placed in your life. When you're constantly chasing after what you don't have, it's easy to overlook the blessings that are already present. You may be so focused on what's ahead that you miss the beauty of where you are right now. Gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to shift your perspective and open your heart to the blessings God has for you. When you stop chasing and start appreciating, you make room for God to move in ways you couldn't have imagined. Chasing can also lead to a false sense of control. It can make you feel like you are the one who has to make everything happen, leaving little room for God to work in your life. But the truth is, God doesn't need your help to fulfill His promises. He is fully capable of opening doors, aligning circumstances, and bringing the right people into your life without you having to chase after them. Your role is not to control the outcome, but to remain faithful, obedient, and trusting in His plan. When you let go of the need to chase, you position yourself to receive God's blessings in their fullness. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing the things you've been holding on to so tightly and placing them in God's hands. It means trusting that He knows what's best for you, even when it doesn't look the way you expected. It's about shifting your focus from striving to surrender, from fear to faith. In this posture of surrender, you create space for God to pour out His blessings in ways that are beyond your imagination. Chasing often reflects a lack of trust in God's ability to provide. It's a mindset that says, I don't go after this, it won't happen. But God is not limited by your efforts. He is the ultimate provider, and He knows exactly what you need before you even ask. When you trust Him, you can rest in the assurance that He is working all things together for your good. Trusting God means believing that He is in control, even when you can't see the whole picture. It means having faith that His plans are better than your own. Letting go of the chase allows you to live with a sense of peace and confidence. It frees you from the constant striving and allows you to focus on the things that truly matter. Instead of chasing, you can invest your time and energy into growing in your relationship with God, serving others, and pursuing the purpose He has given you. When you align yourself with God's will, you don't have to chase after blessings. They will come to you in His perfect time. The right person will see your worth without you having to prove it. In a world that often encourages performance and striving for acceptance, it can be tempting to feel like you need to constantly showcase your value to others. Whether it's in relationships, friendships, or opportunities, there's a tendency to believe that if you don't highlight your strengths, talents, or qualities, they might go unnoticed. But the truth is, the right person, the one God has ordained for your life, will recognize your worth without you needing to convince them. This understanding comes from a place of faith, trust, and knowing who you are in Christ. When someone truly sees your worth, they value you for who you are, not for what you do or what you can offer. Their respect and appreciation for it. You're not conditional on your performance, appearance, or achievements. They see the person God created you to be and cherish the unique qualities He has placed in you. This kind of recognition cannot be forced or manufactured. It comes naturally because it is aligned with God's plan and His divine timing. Trying to prove your worth to someone often leads to exhaustion and disappointment. You may find yourself constantly going out of your way to earn their approval, bending over backward to meet their expectations, or changing yourself to fit their preferences. Over time, this striving can take a toll on your emotional and spiritual well-being. You may begin to question your value, feel unappreciated, or even lose sight of who you are. But God did not create you to live in a cycle of proving and striving. He created you to walk confidently in the identity He's given you, knowing that your worth is already established in Him. When the right person sees your worth, there is a sense of ease and mutual respect. You don't have to explain or justify yourself because they understand and appreciate the person you are at your core. They are drawn to the light of God within you. And their admiration is not based on fleeting or superficial factors. This kind of connection brings peace, not pressure. It allows you to be yourself without fear of judgment or rejection. One of the reasons you don't have to prove your worth to the right person is because they are led by God in their understanding and discernment. When someone is walking closely with God, they are able to see others through His eyes. They recognize the value and purpose in you because they are attuned to the Holy Spirit's guidance. This spiritual alignment creates a foundation for a relationship that is grounded in faith, love, and mutual support. It is not something that can be manufactured by human effort. It is a divine connection orchestrated by God. It's important to remember that not everyone will see your worth, and that's okay. God has not called you to be everything to everyone. Your value is not diminished because someone fails to recognize it. Just as a masterpiece remains priceless even if someone doesn't understand its beauty, your worth remains constant regardless of others' opinions or perceptions. The right person will not only see your value, but will also honor and protect it. They will treat you with kindness, respect, and love that reflects God's heart. Waiting for the right person to recognize your worth requires patience and faith. It can be challenging to resist the urge to prove yourself, especially in a culture that often equates busyness and effort with success. But waiting on God's timing is always worth it. When you trust Him to bring the right people into your life, you can let go of the need to strive and focus on becoming the person He has called you to be. This season of waiting is not wasted. It is a time of preparation, growth, and deepening your relationship with God. When you understand that the right person will see your worth, you also become more intentional about who you allow into your life. You are no longer willing to settle for relationships that drain you, diminish you, or distract you from your purpose. You set boundaries that protect your heart and your peace, and you prioritize connections that are life-giving and aligned with God's will. This discernment is not about arrogance or exclusivity. It is about honoring the value God has placed in you and trusting Him to bring the right people at the right time. Knowing that the right person will see your worth also frees you from the fear of rejection. Rejection can be painful, but it is not a reflection of your value. Sometimes God allows rejection to protect you from relationships that are not part of His plan for your life. Instead of dwelling on what didn't work out, you can trust that He is redirecting you towards something better. Rejection is not the end of the story. It is often a sign that God has something greater in store. Living with the confidence that the right person will see your worth allows you to walk in freedom and joy. You no longer feel the pressure to perform or to chase after relationships that are not meant for you. Instead, you focus on being faithful to God, trusting Him to align your path with the people and opportunities He has prepared for you. This trust creates a sense of peace and assurance that surpasses understanding, enabling you with purpose and fulfillment. Trusting God means believing that He has a plan for your life that is far better than anything you could imagine or create on your own. It is a decision to rely on His wisdom, timing, and direction, even when you don't fully understand the path ahead. Trusting God doesn't mean you won't have questions, doubts, or moments of uncertainty. It means you choose to believe in His faithfulness despite those feelings. It is an active choice to surrender your plans, desires, and fears to Him, knowing that He is working all things together for your good. Trusting God requires letting go of the need to control everything. As human beings, we often feel the need to hold onto every detail of our lives, trying to manipulate outcomes or force situations to go the way we think they should. But true trust in God comes when you release that control and allow Him to take the lead. This doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you take steps in faith, guided by His Word and His Spirit while leaving the results in His hands. Trust is about aligning your actions with His will rather than trying to bend His will to fit your desires. When you trust God, you begin to see life through a different lens. Challenges and setbacks are no longer viewed as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and refinement. You understand that God uses every situation, no matter how difficult, to prepare you for what lies ahead. Trusting Him doesn't mean you will avoid hardship, but it does mean you will have the strength and peace to endure, and that He is with you every step of the way. His plans for you are not just about your immediate happiness, they are about your eternal purpose. One of the most important aspects of trusting God is learning to wait on His timing. Waiting can be one of the hardest things to do, especially in a world that values instant gratification. But God's timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't align with your own schedule. Trusting Him means believing that delays are not denials and that His plans are worth the wait. During those times of waiting, God is often working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances and preparing you for the blessings He has in store. Trusting Him in the waiting season builds patience, faith, and character. Trusting God also means letting go of fear and embracing faith. Fear often tries to creep in when you're faced with uncertainty or when things don't go as planned. It whispers lies that make you question whether God is really in control or if He truly has your best interests at heart. But fear has no place in a heart that is anchored in trust. When you choose to focus on God's promises instead of your fears, you begin to experience His peace that surpasses all understanding. Faith doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you trust the one who does. One of the most beautiful outcomes of trusting God is the freedom it brings. When you trust Him, you are no longer weighed down by the pressure to figure everything out on your own. You don't have to carry the burden of trying to make everything work because you know that God is in control. This freedom allows you to live with joy, knowing that you are in the hands of a loving and faithful God. It also allows you to focus on what truly matters, loving others, growing in your faith, and living out your purpose. Trusting God doesn't mean you'll always get what you want, but it does mean you'll receive what you need. Sometimes what you think is best for you isn't what God has planned, and that's okay. His perspective is higher than yours, and He sees the bigger picture. There may be times when he says no to something you deeply desire, not because he wants to withhold good things from you, but because he has something better in mind. Trusting him means believing that his no is just as loving as his yes, and that every answer he gives is part of a greater plan. A key part of trusting God is staying connected to him through prayer and his word. These are the foundations that strengthen your faith and remind you of his promises. When you pray, you invite God into every area of your life and open your heart to his guidance. When you read his word, you are reminded of his character, his faithfulness, and his unwavering love for you. Trust grows when you spend time with God, seeking his wisdom and direction for your life. Trusting God also involves releasing the weight of past hurts and disappointments. It's easy to let past experiences shake your expectations for the future, but holding on to those things can prevent you from fully embracing what God has for you. Trusting him means letting go of the pain, forgiving those who have wronged you, and allowing him to heal your heart. It's about believing that he can turn your past into something beautiful and that nothing you've been through is wasted in his hands. Living a life of trust in God is a daily choice. It's not something you decide once and forget about. It's a continuous act of surrender and faith. Every day presents new challenges and opportunities to trust him more deeply. Trusting God transforms the way you live, bringing peace in uncertainty, joy in the midst of trials, and confidence in his promises. It's not always easy, but it is always worth it. Ladies, you are daughters of the Most High God. Keep your faith high, your standards higher, and your heart fixed on God. When you live in alignment with him, blessings will come to you. Remember, you don't need to chase. What's meant for you will find you. Keep being the woman God created you to be.